do the workshop. Who's recording it? Was that you, Doug?
Yeah, I figured I'd
Okay,
get started.
all right.
Okay.
We're in progress. Okay, so let's go ahead and
Right.
start.
Okay.
I want to start by introducing, we have Darla and Alden, very close friends of Carol and I, bringers of light. They operated the Healing Center and the Academy where we talked about a lot. They've done a lot of things and they're constantly lighting up the world, and we are grateful to have you as part of our lives. April Helen is somebody that I've just met, but I can see lots of light there. And then we've got Chris, or Red Dog. As you guys know, we talk about the dogs. And then Lori's here too. So we're going to talk about the universal language and how communication with common, I'm not going to be good at describing this, so I'm just going to let you go ahead. So I'll let you take over.
Okay. Thank you all for joining us. It's our pleasure to be here. Very grateful to be with you all. Maybe we can have Mike's mute if that's helpful. It might be at this point. I'm Darla Hughes, as Dan said, and a minister and a teacher of God. And if I wanted to speak more universally, I would say I'm a universal teacher of love. So we're going to take a moment. Dan already introduced the other folks, so we will just take a moment of quiet together, of centering. I appreciate you joining me in that. Inviting all our helpers in, inviting the universe to join us, remembering that we're one mind going home together. We give thanks to experience the very source of love right here, right now, in this moment. As we allow ourselves to be teachable and to spiritually grow together. May we each be given the wisdom to illuminate the opportunities given to us in this present moment, right here, right now. So be it. And I thank you. Thanks, everyone. Yahoo! Everybody awake yet? All righty then. So the introduction was done for my partner in this project, April Helen, and she's the main creator of this course. And my husband Alden is here. He's my best friend, soulmate, proud graduate of Art of Universal Language, and also Spiritual Growth Conversations, which you'll learn about as we share here today. Carol, I love you. That face of hers. Glad you're here.
I love you.
So, did you all know that there are 8 billion of us, 8 billion people on this planet that we live on? And they all speak their own, there's 8 billion people speaking a different language, you know, in groups, of course. And let's all remember that ultimately we each speak a different language. We've all been brought up differently. We all have our different backgrounds. We have our professions that cause us to speak in our own language. We've traveled internationally, right? Have people here traveled? I know people I know here have traveled internationally. And it's interesting how with language, sometimes you can even have a similarity of word, the same word, yet it may have a completely different meaning in another country. So that's another challenge to our communication. So we all know that really the great need is great communication, right? We really have to improve our communication as a species, don't we? To have peace and to have unity and look for the similarities. It's our job to look for the similarities in every situation, isn't it? So that we can dialogue and even get closer than that, than just surface dialogue. So I find it exciting to discover new and effective communication skills. And that's why Dan got excited about this, because we all always want to improve. And it's a tool for loving one another even more and getting closer quickly to have effective conversations. So, and it leaves us, these tools give us the opportunity to even spiritually connect more readily, right? So in the art of universal language, we learn to speak in a more common language versus much of the jargon we use, like especially we're all have different spiritual backgrounds, and we often pick up words from our particular angle of spiritual growth. And we use jargon that other people simply don't understand. And it's just kind of a habit. It's kind of ingrained in us. And also terminology sometimes that people don't understand, that come from our workplace or perhaps metaphysical language. So miscommunication often occurs when unfamiliar language is used, right? By all of us. And also when we're not reverently listening. We've probably all learned that to one degree or another, that we need to listen reverently to one another, to actually track even beyond words what someone is trying to share with us. Also, during times of intense emotion, we've all experienced that. Right, Alden? Hi, Alden. We've all experienced that sometimes when we have intense emotion, nice way of saying possibly an argument, we're usually misunderstood. We feel misunderstood. And a lot of times we discover that it's the way we came across, or misunderstood someone else's word because of the emotion in the moment, right? We're not hearing well. So let's see, we haven't put our first slide up yet, have we? Because yes, that we're going to slip into that mode when we do. So we'll, let's put up our first slide just to, that's okay. Whenever you do, that's fine. So I think the great need is the advancement of communication, bottom line. All right, wow, I forgot to put my little notes up on the screen, but that's all good. So this is our first slide that gives you another idea about this art of universal language, exploring unifying communication with the intention of loving social engagement, which can help us experience global transformation, right? Okay, so I will go on here. About slide 2, April Helen. And would you mind reading this for us, April Helen? Can you come off mic and read? Oh, and I wanted you to actually touch on this first one. If you could just touch on this first quote and in your words.
Yes. So for those of you who are familiar with the Urantia book, there are 2 quotes speaking about how important it is to apply universal language to our communication. In influencing the expanding evolutionary mind, the power of an idea lies not in its reality or reasonableness, but rather in its vividness and the universality of its ready and simple application. So my interpretation of this, and I look forward to hearing of others as we open the floor, that what Miss Darla was just speaking about, and I'm sure many of you have experienced, that language is not just the words that we choose. It is about the energetic frequency that we hold and the body language, and then our actions that come out of our words and intentions. And so as we are in spiritual growth conversations with others, other truth observers, truth seekers, progress partners that we tone the idea down to the most widely accepted and readily available action step that comes. So I think it was Einstein that said, if you don't know how to explain it in simple terms, you actually don't know yourself. And so I've thought about that a lot as preparing this, of really just acting as if we're all 5-year-olds on a playground, or down at the river is the vision that I like to use, just helping each other walk home and learn. And so the language differences have ever been a great barrier to the extension of peace. A universal language promotes peace, ensures culture, and augments happiness. And that Ms. Darla has already touched on,
Yes.
promoting peace. And all the things that she just said in the intro apply right
Mhm.
from that quote. Beautiful words.
Yes. Thank you so much, April Helen. Appreciate that. Yes. And the quote that I was going to share, that quote that you just shared by Einstein, I have it here somewhere. If you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself. That's a great quote. So, we're going to keep it loving and we're going to keep it simple. We're going to try. So this session is an introduction to this training of the art of universal language. So we'll only have time to offer you an overview. We're going to hopefully come in the fall or the spring, sometime next year, and be with you and offer this in a expanded version. So we're going to touch on some of the tools and that we can all fine tune our skills, right? And move to a more loving and helpful communication for everyone. So when we refer to universal spiritual language, we look for similarities, don't we, to find unity. We're talking to a group of unity people, right? So, you may say source of love instead of this, just an example of using universal language. You might say source of love versus God in a particular situation, or you might say the all in all. So those are just some ideas of how we want to expand our verbiage and listen, and use guidance to communicate to a broader audience. As a result, we can dynamically act with people of all faiths, right? Isn't that our goal? And experience more commonality and deeper connections. So we want to speak a language, all of us, where we're understood and received by the greatest number of people, right? Don't we all want that? To reveal the greatest truth to everyone in your presence for the greatest length of time. That's good communication, right? Don't we all want that? All right, so we are on slide 3. We're going to go to the slides now and kind of quickly go through an overview of this beautiful course. So this slide is, can you guys all see it? Because I've got the panel of the Zoom on the side covering some of these, but can you see them okay?
We
Dan?
can hear. Yes.
Yeah, okay. All righty. So these are our 6 easy pillars. As I said, we are determined to have this art of universal language be easy. And you've all probably heard that term easy peasy. Well, ours is easy peasy. Okay, so these are our acronyms for making this. These are the categories we kind of go into to learn these ideas that help us communicate better. So preparation, that's through centering, which we did at the beginning, right? Our own personal preparation. We prepare our mind, our heart, our intention. Existence, and that is existing in full presence, right? We exist and we're here now, communicating with one another with full intent. The A is for awareness, and that's being aware of our audience. That's always helpful, isn't it? Who am I talking to? The 6-year-old across the street who I adore? Or am I talking to these people of God right here and right now who are teachers of God and expanding their spiritual growth? Consciousness, the C is for consciousness of expressing our spiritual values. These are also called what? Fruits of the Spirit. In A Course in Miracles, they're called attributes of a teacher of God. So we're conscious, aren't we, that part of our spiritual growth is expressing spiritual values, teaching ourselves, teaching others. Inquiry at the forefront. We'll get into that more later. When we inquire of people, we show that we care about them, right? Because we're not being about ourselves. When we respond, we're inquiring about them, as Jesus often did. And E is the exchange of language. Finally, we get to when we've listened and gotten in tune ourselves, we speak, and we're mindful of our communication and our exchange of language. So we can go to slide 4 now. Thank you, April Helen. So our inner foundations, and first we have our inner foundations, don't we? Which were these first 4 pillars that we just expressed. And before we have our outer expression. Our first pillars, first we prepare our mind, we exist in presence, we have the awareness of the audience, and we're conscious, right, of our spiritual values. That's our inner preparation, our intention, and then our outer expression using compassionate language. All right, so the next slide. These are just some helpful techniques. Why don't you just all look at that for a moment? These are just helpful techniques for our inner and outer expression. It's just some ideas for you to look at where you might want to be more aware when you're exchanging with others. We'll just take a moment for you to look. Recenter in love, right? That's one we do. That's something we can do all the time in a dialogue, and especially when someone is asking for help, just all the time. We have to remember to stay vertical and recenter in love. So how about we go to the next slide, which is our first pillar. Thank you, April Helen. Preparation through centering. We offered that at the beginning, and that is your willingness, right, to be guided by spirit. This represents your willingness to go to your inner helpers, whatever term you use for that. It's vital. It's vital. And go ahead and go to the next slide, April Helen. All right. Alden, would you mind reading this for us? Where is Alden?
Yes.
Can't see him on my screen. There he is.
All right. So the secret of Jesus's unparalleled religious life was this consciousness of the presence of God, and he attained it by intelligent prayer and sincere worship, unbroken communion with God.
Thank you. And we can do the same, can't we? We can do the same. His communion with God is, this ability abides in us too. And that this is a demonstration of remaining centered, isn't it? All right. So how about the next slide, April Helen? This is our second pillar, existence in full presence. So it's becoming more widely understood in this planet we live on that listening skills are very, very valuable to learning to love humanity, aren't they? Are you all learning that in your life, how important listening skills are? Alden and I have been married 30 plus years, and I could lost count. We're still learning, that listening skill is crucial. And yes, let's talk about that for a moment, even in light of it. Listening is more than words, isn't it? It's like full presence attention. As we mentioned earlier, April Helen touched on it, the body language, we'll talk about it more later. Energy, right? Existing in full presence is totally listening inwardly, listening to the words being expressed. Body language, there's just much more to it. It's a total thing, isn't it? Okay, why don't we go to the next idea? Jesus was a great listener, wasn't he? He was a incredible listener, and this is about that. Dan, do you mind reading this one for us?
Okay. As a rule, to those who taught the most, he said the least. Those who derive most benefit from his personal ministry were overburdened, anxious, and dejected mortals who gained much relief because of the opportunity to unburden their souls to a sympathetic and understanding listener. And he was all that and more.
Yes. Doesn't that make you appreciate Jesus even more? Yeah, April Helen made a note here. Yes, indeed. Receive with full acceptance and tolerance. Be sensitive, yet taking nothing personal. Amen to that.
Yes,
Thank-
that was in reply to iPhone's comment on my language of be anti-fragile. That's the short way of saying take nothing personally, yet be sensitive.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for that. Okay, we'll go on to the next slide. Sorry about that. So let's all take a moment and look at this list. This is the idea of fruits of the Spirit, spiritual values, characteristics of a teacher of God. So let's look at this. Just spend a minute with this, and give yourself credit in this moment for the ones that you know you flourish in. We all have these attributes. We've worked a lifetime on these beautiful attributes of compassionate learners and teachers. So just look at this list, be with it, pat yourself on the back for the ones you know you're strong in, because you are, and take a look at the ones you'd like to work on in your own spiritual growth, your own advancement in your communication, and just your personal soul growth, and bringing joy and bringing peace to our planet. So I know some of you here, and I know that you're pretty connected to a lot of these beautiful attributes.
Can I ask for
And
clarity?
yes,
So
and
this is the thoughts, or I'm a little bit unclear as to what we're doing here.
we're looking at our artful communication by growing, like this particular slide is growing in these things. These are things, fruits of the Spirit are a big part. They're a big part of what we teach in this course. To communicate better, we have to expand in these fruits of the Spirit, or spiritual values, right? Sometimes it's called spiritual values. Sometimes in Course in Miracles, it's called attributes of a teacher of God, right? We'll touch on those again later. So these are just things that expand our awareness of great communication, artful communication, right? When we have these attributes within us, we've allowed ourselves to grow in these attributes.
So I'll just add a little bit. You'll notice that we appreciate the aspect of learning being repetition. And so you'll see within the wording of the pillars and the teaching of these 6 important pieces of communication that we've identified, that being fully present and understanding this is where we live out of these spiritual values that we say we have. And always investigating where we live up to those values with integrity through authenticity. And then a little later, when we come to the portion of consciousness of spiritual values, so that's the redundancy for the repetition of knowledge, that
Yeah.
then it's just further expanded in that outward expression. Miss Darla said that the first four were inner work, and that then the last two, the outer. So this is just really getting deep and clear on where we live up to the values that we say we have as we go into our outer world expression of them.
Yes, thank you, April Helen. And I'm going to just quickly go. This is an introduction, so I'm going to quickly go through these others because we only have about 10 more minutes, really. So let's go on to the next slide, please.
Just so you know, you can go over a little bit. You can go to 10:20 or 9:20.
Okay. Awareness of our audience. We touched on that earlier. Let's go ahead and go to the slide after that. On the awareness of audience, this explains that a little bit, right? We identify the level of communication that we can, depends on the crowd that you're in front of, the person that you're in front of. You kind of identify that, right? And inwardly, I always ask for help, but not always. I try to remember to ask for help. And then we communicate accordingly. So you can read through intuitive within you too, through your guidance within, and also through energetic frequency. If you're really tapped in, you can even feel that. I saw Carol shake her head, yes. Body language, right? Don't we even learn from people's body language and our own, you know, how open we are. Yeah, body language shows you a lot. And we want to communicate too through body language, of course, ourselves. And inquiry. We ask open and honest questions, don't we? And we fully accept what is being heard. That allows a person to feel that they're heard, right? When we ask them a question about themselves, not just say hi and go on about ourselves, but we ask open, and we'll touch quickly on what an honest question is too. You shouldn't know the answer. It's not a leading question if you don't know the answer that they're going to give you through the question you posed, right? So we don't want to do a leading question where we're almost hinting to them how we want them to respond, right? That's might not be an open and honest question. So let's go ahead and go on. Consciousness of expressing our spiritual values. We just looked at some of those values, many of them. There's probably many more. Some of those are kind of repetitive that we saw in that list. They kind of mean the same thing to a degree. So why don't we go on to these quotes that follow? And let's see, this first one, I'll go ahead and read this. Jesus was quoted, "Dedicate your life to the great work of showing how the critical material mind of man can triumph over the inertia of intellectual doubting when faced by the demonstration of the manifestation of living truth as it operates in the experience of spirit-born men and women who yield the fruits of the Spirit in their lives and who love one another, even as I have loved you." So we dedicate our life to this great work, don't we? Of demonstrating that we are spirit-born women and men. And we yield these fruits of the Spirit in our lives. Rosa Parks once said, "Each person must live their life as a model for others." Who, well, I can't read it all on the screen. Do you see the full screen, April Helen? Can you read that last one real quick?
I would like to be remembered as a person who wanted to be free, so other people would also be free.
Thank you. Thanks so much. It's a beautiful quote, isn't it? That's how we want to be remembered, right? All right, well, let's go on to the next screen. again, we'll look at this. April Helen mentioned that we would be repeating this. So these are often the most common. There's 9 in the Bible. There's 10 in A Course in Miracles that are very similar to this. And these are from the Urantia book. We're just using that as an example today, some of the quotes from your Urantia book. And they all interface. They're all similar to, I guess you could say, the main fruits of the Spirit that we would want to have active in our life. So just take a quick look at those. Don't we all aspire to this, right? And don't we all function in these? Give yourself credit that you actually function in these. Yes, as teachers of truth, teachers of universal love, we function in these. So, and we're grateful, right? I'm grateful, so I know you are. Okay, let's go on. Just so we can quickly complete this inquiry at the forefront.
Excuse
Absolutely.
me, Darla. There was an inquiry about your ranch, maybe near the end, if you want to just give a quick little, what is your ranch?
Yes, I'll just quickly do that right now. Your Urantia book is an teaching. Maybe we will do it at the end, and I might have April Helen quickly give an overview. She could give a quicker one than I could on that. Another book, much like Course in Miracles, is what I'll say at this time, for personal growth, personal spiritual growth, and it has universal truths in it and our whole history and a huge section on Jesus. Big portion, I don't know, a third or a fourth of the book is on the life and teachings of Jesus Christ. So
One more quick
very-
note. Sorry, Darla. And near the end of November, we're having assault on spiritual books, and the ranch will be discussed along with many others. So watch for that. That's from Marty Chamberlain.
Thank you. Great. Yeah, you'll have to give us a heads up on that. Yeah. So inquiry at the forefront. Why don't we go on to the next slide that touches on this? Okay, as we prepare, right, with our centering, we may ask for our spirit's help. This goes with inquiry. I believe this slide goes with inquiry. As we exist in full presence, we may ask for our inner guidance, right? As we are aware of our audience, we may ask for spiritual discernment. So this section is literally about the questions you pose to draw out the deep inner sharing of your audience. As you prepare your mind, right? You ask for help. You ask for your inner guidance. You ask for spiritual discernment. Then you're going to ask the right questions to the individual in front of you, right? You're going to come from your heart, you're going to come from that pure guidance, that your own Christ mind, and you're going to ask a question that will help them be healed and help them go deeper into sharing their heart and being open. So why don't we go ahead and go on? The best single mark of an honest, open question is that the questioner cannot possibly anticipate the answer, right? Isn't that true? That means you're not leading them, like this says, you're not leading them to give you the answer you want to hear. You've asked a very open-ended question, and you've asked a very thoughtful, provoking question. You've and shown that you care about them. The honest, open question shows the person that you've listened and you care about them. Sometimes a question can even become from oops, okay, it says time's up, but we have a few more minutes. Yeah, I wanted to make sure I got through this. So it's something to think about, isn't it? What a honest, open question is. That's something I would like you to ponder, even after this. And we don't often think that we need to even ask for guidance in that situation, do we? That what would be a good question to draw this person out? And it's just a very loving thing to do. So why don't we go on, April Helen? Thank you. exchange of language. Finally, see, we normally put that at the forefront, you know. I know I do sometimes. We want to talk and we want to get our opinion in, but the exchange of language then comes right after we've listened. We've been conscious of what we want to happen in a situation. We want a holy encounter, and then we can exchange language, right? Then, and it's going to be loving and it's going to be appropriate. The spirit of religion is eternal, but the form of its expression must be restated every time the dictionary of human language is revised. So that's a big point about this art of universal language, this artful language we're trying to learn. You know, spirit of religion within us, our dedication, our being religious about our contact, our inner contact with God. I'm going to go ahead and say, it's even our form of expression has to be updated, right? There's a new generation here in this world, and they can't sometimes hear our old jargon and our old ways of expressing ourselves. So our form of expression must be updated, so to speak, through guidance. Every time the human language is revised, we've seen that. The people in this room, in our generation, we've seen that the human language has been revised, right? And we want to track with that. So some of the exchange ideas of language are, again, language goes beyond just our words, right? Words is just one expression. Our thoughts, right? There's language going on in our head. Our thoughts, thinking at a higher frequency, our energetic frequency that we display to others, and our own personal body language, also watching other consciousnesses' body language, and our actions, right? How our overall language and our exchange of language is even expressed in our actions, isn't it? Right? So I can go into that, but you know what that is, and you know how we express shows where we're coming from.
Well, I think
My
it's
actions.
funny. I usually remember my grandmother saying, "Your actions are so loud, I can't hear what you're saying," because they're not in alignment, right? They're hypocritical.
Yeah, and when you said that, I saw you sort of bouncing off the walls around your grandma, you know, like not in your right mind in that moment, perhaps as a kid, you know. So your action speaks so loud. Thanks, April Helen. That's great. Yes, and the next slide. All right, see, this is actually an in-depth course, so, you know, forgive us here. We're trying to rush through what is actually, you know, where we'll role play together. When we get together again, we're going to do role play. We're going to get this embedded in our soul and in our consciousness and our desires even. We did this course together, created it, and then we took the course, taught the course twice, and it was beneficial. I know it was very beneficial to Alden and all of us. It was very beneficial to me. It got it more ingrained in my soul and my demonstration. So these are just quickly, we'll look at these other techniques and technologies that improve our art of universal language, right? As we broaden our mind and our willingness to learn ourselves. So why don't we go on, April Helen, so that you have a moment and Alden has a moment at the end. Spiritual growth conversations. Okay, so this is where I was going to give April Helen a moment. It is 9:17, so we just have a few minutes, April Helen. So if you can touch on this, and also the art of universal language offered in the future.
Yes. Thank
Just
you,
wanted to
Miss
interrupt
Darla.
real quick. Just
Yeah.
a second. We got time. There's not a lot of people sitting in the room. So the only reason we always quit before 10:30 is so that there wasn't a crowd walking into the room just as service starts. So
Okay.
take your time. We're doing fine.
All
Okay.
right. Thank you, Mr. Dan.
We'll have Alden share for a moment too. So go ahead, April Helen. Thank you.
Yes, this passion project arose out of my lengthy all the way from childhood, really moving around a lot in childhood to different schools, having to, unbeknownst to me, this is what I was doing, having to learn a new language every time I moved states and getting into a different, even mid-semester to different schools. And then as about 2 years ago, this spiritual growth conversation platform where Darla, Alden, and I host conversations for the public on another venue called Chasm that you can go, and there's so many different organizations that have public conversations on this platform, and we're just one of them. So we have the Art of Universal Language training for becoming a host of these spiritual growth conversations. And just for your knowledge, however, if you'd ever like to join us, we can onboard you as a host of these spiritual growth conversations or any other public conversation that you're being a host of. There's another platform on the Chasm venue called Living Room Conversations that is more secular, and it has over 160 topics that you can choose from or even write your own. And we would just love to see you. I feel like that's about all I need to say, right, Miss Darla? Oh, you're on mute, honey.
Yes, thank you. The next slide shows the link which Dan asked for. It shows the link to get on these spiritual growth conversations. So you can copy that down, Dan. I can also send it to you.
I can put it in the chat.
Okay. And yes, there will be something next year. Dan will get back together on that, whether we come in person to do an expanded version of this artful communication, and we do role play and make it fun and interactive, and we literally practice these skills, and it's super helpful, and we can have a joyous gathering sometime next year. So we'll get back to everyone about that. And Alden, can you just
1 second before Alden starts, I wanted to tell you that it just came to me. Next year, we always have this yearly event called Courageous Conversations. And it's a month-long series of conversations about things that people don't want to talk about or whatever. And this would definitely be a great part of our Courageous Conversations series. So we'll talk more about that.
Great.
Oh,
Thank you, Dan.
Go ahead, Alden.
Yes, and April, Helen, can we get off share screen? So I feel like I'm looking off to the side, and that way I can see all your lovely faces. So she'll take us off share screen. Yes, and Alden, tell us about your experience with Art of Universal Language and spiritual growth, my dear.
Okay, well, I just would say sometimes we think, well, we kind of already know these principles, or we've heard them around, and do we really need more focus on how to communicate? And I do think it's really important. And I'm really glad that April Helen started this program years ago, actually, because there's a way of being present, and then there's a master teacher level of being present. Like, you can't focus on this subject too much, I believe. It's really worth the effort. And Darla's a really good example of that higher level of presence when she's in, and she started this only when she was like 40 years old. She was a member of a band, and you have to listen to every musical instrument in the band to know how to communicate to the audience. Like, it's a higher level of presence. And when you get to a real master teacher level like Jesus of presence as well, there's just something kicks in at a higher energetic level of communicating with whoever you're with, whether it's a child or someone else who's looking for spiritual help. And yeah, this will expand out, like April Helen said, in the spiritual growth. That's a great idea of a forum for introducing new people to the idea of spiritual communication, and not necessarily related to theology or doctrine. But is it possible, like Jesus wandering around without, he had the Hebrew doctrine, but he was creating a new kind of doctrine or presence, right, as he walked the earth. So yeah, this is going to be really amazing, and I'm really happy to be part of it. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Alden. Beautifully put. Yes, these spiritual growth conversations, I encourage you, Dan and Carol, to join us one evening and see what that is, where we all have equal shared time. We just share our hearts, and we have thought-provoking questions that initiate a deeper conversation. Ray and Christine came one time, and that was a delight. I think that was called Spiritual Adventures with Friends. And we ended up going quite deep just by even what might seem like a surface question. It just drew us deep, and we're writing more conversations for this, and it really is just a conversation. We're just sharing our minds and hearts together, and wow, it just takes us all vertical, and they're very joyous and very healing actually, these spiritual growth conversations.
Will you send an email to me with when and link for that, please?
Okay, yeah, I'll send you a link where you can push follow, and then you get the schedule each week, because we
good.
vary our times and we vary our classes, and we are usually join each other. So yeah, I'll send you the link to follow and push follow, and they'll just send you one email a week that just shows you all the different. And then once you sign up for one, we need you to go in and RSVP, and then you'll get a day reminder, and then you'll get an hour reminder in your email.
Good.
And then yeah, so it's helpful to RSVP and let us know you're coming.
Okay.
So yeah, you can choose a time, and yeah. So
Thank you.
maybe you at one point I can get that to you too, Christine. So you'll just know our schedule each week if you just want to pop in. It's just an hour, and hour goes quick because we're just it's delightful. We sort of go out of time together for a moment.
Right.
So yeah.
All right.
Any final comments, Christine? Any quick thoughts? No, you're good. No, I want to hear you for a minute, my friend. There you are.
Hi. No, I don't have any quick thoughts. It's really interesting for me because I wasn't quite awake when I started this, and so it's I'm just letting it kind of wash over me. So I think it's going to help me with the rest of my day too. Just it's thought provoking. Let's put it that way. So yeah.
Thank you,
I
my
really
dear.
appreciate it. I'm glad I joined. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Christine.
Mhm.
And Carol, I adore you, and thank you so much. Thanks, April, Helen, Alden. All
Just
of
so you
you.
know, I will send you a link to the YouTube where this will be posted. So then you're welcome to share that, obviously. So, and then Doug, you can go ahead and stop the recording. So thank you, everyone.